Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way, YouTube will keep showing you more stories like this. Now, let's begin. It's been almost a year since I last stepped into a McDonald's. It's not because the food is terrible or the experience was bad. It's because every time I see Ronald's curly red hair and wide grin on an advertisement, I find myself standing silently in a cemetery on a biting cold night, in front of a small grave with the name Michael. I was 20 at the time, working as a mascot at McDonald's restaurants throughout Los Angeles. That evening, I had just finished my shift at a McDonald's branch. The other employees were cleaning up and getting ready to close. I was putting away a few items near the entrance, about to go change and head home when a woman appeared. She was middle-aged, thin, wearing a gray sweater. Her gray hair fell over her shoulders, and her sunken eyes looked directly at me. "Excuse me, we're about to close," I said, but she didn't move. Her eyes scrutinized me from head to toe. She said, "My son wants to meet Ronald." I looked at her suspiciously. She pulled out a $50 bill from her pocket. "Michael loves Ronald McDonald and wants to take a picture with him. I'll pay you extra for your time." $50 wasn't a small amount for me back then, and her eyes seemed so sincere. Plus, the job she was asking for wasn't difficult at all. "Where is Michael?" I asked. She smiled softly. "Just follow me." We walked to a car parked by the side of the road. She drove slowly, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. I tried to make conversation to break the silence. "How old is Michael?" 8 years old. He's very smart." I nodded, waiting for her to say more, but she just stayed silent. "When did Michael start liking Ronald McDonald?" "Since he was little. He always asked me when he would get to meet Ronald." I nodded, looking out the window and realizing we were driving through downtown. There were only a few sparse houses on either side of the road. A few minutes later, the car was still moving. "Are we almost there?" I asked, when I realized we had already passed a residential area. "Almost," she smiled and said. I looked out the window, still not seeing our destination, so I asked again. "Where are we going?" She kept her stiff smile. "To Michael. He's waiting." The car turned into the cemetery gate. The night wind rustled through the dry branches, creating an eerie, chilling sound. I shivered. "Why are we here?" The woman stopped the car next to a small stone pathway, turned off the engine, and then turned to look at me. "Michael is here." I sat still for a moment, trying to comprehend the situation. She had opened her car door and was standing outside waiting for me. I hesitated but still got out of the car. We walked deeper into the cemetery. My shoes crunched on the gravel path, the sound echoing in the quiet night. Large tree shadows loomed on the ground like giant monsters. She walked softly, as if familiar with this path. I followed, my heart pounding. Finally, she stopped in front of a small grave. I looked down and read the deeply carved inscription. "Michael David Thompson, 2015 to 2024, beloved son." My whole body trembled. "He's been waiting for you for a very long time," she said, her voice gentle, as if talking to a living child. "Michael, this is Ronald." I stood there like a stone statue, looking down at the grave, then back at her. "Can you tell Michael a joke?" she asked me, her eyes looking down at the tombstone. I swallowed, my throat dry. I had taken her money. I could do this just once. I stepped closer to Michael's grave. "Hey, Michael, Ronald has a joke for you. Why did the chicken cross the road?" I paused, waiting. In that silent moment, I heard the giggle of a child. I was a little surprised by the laughter. It was the woman laughing, her eyes fixed on the tombstone. The laughter came from her, but the tone was completely different. It sounded like the joyful giggle of a 9-year-old child. "Why, Ronald?" she said in a childlike voice, her head tilted slightly. I felt frozen, but I still answered, To get to the other side." The childlike laughter rang out again, but this time I clearly saw her eyes. In them there wasn't just madness, but also the pain of a mother who had lost her child. A few seconds later, she stopped laughing, her eyes returning to their former state. "Michael wants to take a picture with Ronald." She took out a camera. I looked at the grave, then at her. I felt an invisible hand squeezing my throat. I stood up, backed away. I can't. The smile on her face slowly faded. She looked at me with a bewildered expression. "Why not?" I quickly took out the $50 bill and handed it back to her. "I'm sorry. I have to go." I turned and walked quickly towards the exit. Behind me, the woman suddenly burst into loud sobs, tearing through the silence of the night. "Michael! Mom is so sorry." I ran like the wind towards the cemetery gate. Her cries still echoed behind me. I didn't dare look back. I ran until I couldn't hear her cries anymore. I walked all night to get home, still wearing my Ronald McDonald suit. My shirt was soaked with sweat. The next morning, I called my job and quit. I couldn't explain to my boss why, just that I didn't want to dress up as Ronald McDonald anymore. Years have passed, and sometimes I still remember that night. I vividly remember the woman's laughter and her cries. Perhaps I was too cowardly to run away. I could have stayed, taken a picture, and offered some comforting words to that grieving mother. I just wanted a Big Mac after school. But less than 10 minutes later, I was being dragged by my hair. My nose was broken, and I was sprawled on the ground. It all started simply because I dared to tell him to wait his turn in line. I was 16 then, living with my family in San Diego, California. As usual, I walked to the McDonald's on Broadway for lunch. While waiting in line, my eyes were glued to my phone screen when I suddenly felt someone shove hard into my back. A big, beefy man cut directly in front of me. He was wearing a baggy t-shirt with a thick, greasy brown beard, dark sweat stains spreading under his armpits, and a bulging belly that looked like it was about to touch the counter. His tiny, squinted eyes darted at me defiantly when I reacted. A sour, stale odor wafted from him, making me instinctively recoil. I hesitated for a few seconds, then mustered up my courage and spoke. "Excuse me, you need to get in line like everyone else." He turned around, his face flushed. "I'm in a hurry, kid." I tried to stay calm, politely. "But everyone else is in line." I said, "I'm in a hurry," he growled, stepping so close his foul breath hit my face directly. "You got a problem?" Before I could answer, he suddenly grabbed my arm. A sharp pain shot through my bicep as his fat fingers squeezed my flesh. He leaned in close, hissing, "I'll rip your little mouth off." My legs felt like jelly. My face burned, whether from anger or fear I couldn't tell. I yanked my arm free, stepped back, and gave him space. He ordered and then moved to the waiting area to pick up his food. I continued to wait in line. When it was my turn, I ordered a Big Mac, fries, and a Coke. While waiting for my order and rubbing my still aching arm, I glanced over at him. He was leaning close to the counter, saying something to the young employee handing out food. The young woman looked at the receipt, then at the food bag, and shook her head. He started to raise his voice, demanding a free Big Mac. His voice was full of menace. The girl tried to explain something. He abruptly grabbed her by the collar, pulling her hard towards him. She screamed in panic, struggling to break free. I stood frozen. Other customers turned to look, but no one dared to intervene. Then a man in a white shirt emerged from the back. It was the store manager. He calmly said, "I've called the police. They'll be here in a few minutes." The guy glared at him, then let go of the girl. Before leaving, he turned back. "I'll remember your face." The store slowly returned to normal amidst whispers and chatter. I got my order, my hands still shaking. Stepping outside, the delicious smell of the burger made my stomach rumble. I turned into my usual alley to head home. This was a shortcut through an old warehouse district. And then I saw him. He was leaning against the red brick wall, holding a glass beer bottle, his eyes bloodshot. "It's you again?" he said, a twisted smile on his lips. He slammed the beer bottle onto the ground. Glass shattered, the sound echoing in the empty alley. I turned to run, but he was faster. He snatched the bag of food from my hand, taking a long sniff as if savoring his prize. "This is mine." He opened the Big Mac box, took a huge bite, sauce dripping down his chin. I stood frozen. He swallowed, licked his lips, then growled, "This is all your fault. You made me look bad at McDonald's. You're gonna pay." I stammered an apology, but he wasn't listening. The first punch landed hard on my back, sending me sprawling to the ground. My knees and palms scraped raw. He continued to kick my side. The kicks were so brutal I couldn't even scream. He bent down, grabbed my hair, and pulled me up. His face was close, and then the next punch landed squarely on my nose. I clearly heard the bones break. Warm blood poured into my mouth. I begged him to stop, but he just laughed maniacally. Just then, I heard shouts from the end of the alley. A man came running, followed by another, then two women. They surrounded him. One person yelled to call the police. He struggled, trying to break free from their grasp. A woman knelt beside me, wiping the blood from my eyes and mouth with tissues, her voice gently comforting. The police arrived shortly after. The big man was handcuffed and led away. I was taken to the hospital. My injuries were examined and bandaged. The big man was charged with assault and battery, and he received a 3-year prison sentence. Even though he was punished, I lived with the trauma for many months afterward. I didn't dare go through that alley. I even avoided the McDonald's on Broadway. I learned a lesson. Sometimes a simple right word can turn you into a target, and if you don't fight back, they won't stop. But I also understood something else equally important. Indifference fuels evil. If those strangers hadn't stepped in that day, I might not be here to tell this story. Hi, my name's Zana, 32 years old, currently residing in Illinois with my own happy family, of me, my husband, and 3 little angels. The story I'm about to tell happened 14 years ago. It was in the summer, where I spent my school break working part-time in a nearby McDonald's restaurant. I often worked night shifts. To make sure I'm safe from home to work, I often used my father's car. And that's when the scary things happened to me. I remembered that was a super busy day, when even with a full complement, our shift was barely enough to cover all the guests. We closed down the shop 30 minutes later than our shift. I was totally toasted after such exhausting day. Due to being the closest to the shop, I was the last one leaving. As soon as I turned off the lights, I could hear a faint cry somewhere. It was 2 a.m., so everywhere around me was utterly quiet. I stood still, trying to lift my head to listen. It was clearly someone's crying, but there wasn't anything unusual around me. There was some rushed footsteps as well as if someone panting right behind my back. So I reopened the front door and peeked inside. However, there wasn't anything unusual. But I swear to God, the gasping was very, very close by. After a while of staring into nothing, suddenly I heard, "Please help me." The sound of a young woman rang out from there, yet it sounded twisted, as if went through 100 of sound filters. "Who are you? Come on out." After a deep breath, I bellowed with all my courage, "Zana, please help me. Oh my God, that girl knew me." The fact that she knew me, or of someone I knew, twisted my guts. "Whoever that is, come on out, now!" I demanded one more time with all the courage I had mustered. Yet there was no response. Only a quiet wailing answered me. That's it. I had enough of their game, I thought to myself, losing patience. Plus my eyelids and soaring feet were slowly torturing me. So I closed the shop quickly and made my way to the parking lot. I made sure to have locked all doors from inside before turning the key. As soon as the car grumbled and moved out to the aisle, there was a white shadow jumped straight on my path, prompting me to hit the brake with all my might. "Holy shit!" I yelled aloud as my entire body tilted toward the steering wheel. Thankfully, I was conscious enough to not stepping on the accelerator. Yet even with all that, my heart was beating like it's gonna fall out of my chest. When I lifted my eyes up, I could see a young woman, totally naked, trying to stop my car from leaving. She's knocking on the door frantically, tears running from her frightened eyes. Took me a while to realize she was Nicole, my classmate. I immediately opened the door for her and showed her the blanket that often reserved for my sleep. Her body was dead cold, even though it's an Illinois summer night. Nicole begged me to call the police. Her mother and siblings needed urgent rescue. It took me 3 times to successfully dial 911. My hands were shaking with all the adrenaline and fluctuating emotions. Nicole wasn't looking so hot at all. After telling her home address, she blacked out completely. Her body was full of bruises. Something very, very horrible must have happened to her. 10 minutes later, the police arrived with an ambulance and paramedics. It was around 3:30 a.m. The paramedics brought Nicole to the hospital, while a police officer escorted me home. I was now safe, but I couldn't sleep. Nicole in her distressed state kept bugging me. The next day, I saw on the morning news that a woman was shot 3 times, and in critical state with a gunshot wound to the head. It was a miracle that she was alive by the time police got there. In the household, there were 3 other children of 12, 8, and 6 years old bunkering up in their room. The 3 children was in the state of shock, but fortunately intact. The perpetrator was the husband and the father of the household. And the crime scene was Nicole's house. The revelation on the news stunned me. My parents suggested me to visit Nicole in the hospital. When I got there, she was in the state of shock and wrapped in blanket. Nicole didn't react to any questions I asked her. It drove me to tears, more when I now knew what she had been through. Nicole was a beautiful-looking, active, and very friendly young woman. Nicole's family has 4 sisters. As far as I heard, they were of steps and half-siblings. Nicole was stepsister to the 12 and 8-year-old girls. The youngest one of 6 years old was the half-siblings of both. After recovery, Nicole told the police what happened that day. She heard a series of gunshots at around 1 a.m. After calming down, she moved out to her younger siblings' room to check on them. But before getting there, a tall figure had entered her room. That was her stepfather, who barged in and tried to rape her. She managed to put up a fierce resistance, but to little avail. After a series of beatings and realizing she would soon run out of breath, she told the man to go to the bathroom to get prepped, and then sneaking out from there, naked. The rest of it was history. Not long after recovery, the little family was further torn apart from the death of their mutual mother. The monster that was the father was sentenced to life, while the siblings were designated to their respective relatives. Nicole and I, after the incident, we were getting very close. She was a very successful woman who was the bridesmaid on my wedding. Though far apart, her siblings remained very close, even though they weren't of the same bloodline. The pain might drive us apart or pull us closer together. It was all about how we handled our pain. The radio was humming along in my beat-up car. Dust in the wind. That old song about how fragile life is. I ran my hand across the torn seat covers, then glanced down at the 3 guns laid out beside me, cleaned to a shine last night. It was one of those brutal May afternoons, the kind where the air feels like it's catching fire. I'd been sitting in the car for over an hour, staring through the window at the McDonald's on the corner. Sweat crawled down my back, my shirt clinging like plastic wrap. Wasn't the heat, though. It was that weird tightness in my chest that had been building all day. Through the glass, I could see every little thing inside. A family sharing fries. A young couple lost in their phones. The cashier, a young woman smiling at every customer. The smell of fries drifted in through my window and wrapped around me. Stuck in that moment, my mind drifted back to a few months ago. Steady job, tiny apartment, and a relationship that felt like something out of a dream. Then boom, company folded. Cold little email. And those looks people give you when they don't know what to say. It'll be okay, Roy. That's what they all said. But it wasn't. Everything I had was peeling away, one piece at a time. They said I'd bounce back, find a new path. But no one knew my path had run out miles ago. My hands were damp on the steering wheel. My breath came fast and shallow. I reached for one of the guns, stepped out of the car. The heat hit me like a slap. The door to the McDonald's slid open. Cold air rushed over my face. Nobody noticed me, except one little kid. 6, maybe. He was waving at everyone who walked in. He waved at me. I looked into those clear eyes of his, no doubt, no fear. I felt my hand raise the gun. The first shot cracked through the air, but it wasn't aimed at the kid. I fired straight at the glass in front of me. The crash was deafening, shards flying like shrapnel. A man holding his son hit the ground. Blood sprayed across the table, bright red like someone had thrown paint. The kid he'd been holding slipped from his arms, didn't even cry, just stared, wide-eyed, like he couldn't process what was happening. That's when the numbness set in. Like I was watching some scene from a movie, not the one pulling the trigger. Then it all exploded. A wall of screams ripped through the air. Chairs slammed over. People tripped over each other. The pounding of feet and fists on doors. I caught sight of a kid crawling under the cashier counter. Those bright sneakers flashing like a silent scream for help. A woman clutched her kid to her chest, trying to shield them with her body. I locked eyes with her. She was shaking, terrified, silently begging me not to. I pulled the trigger anyway, and she dropped, eyes still locked on mine. A little girl, maybe 8, took one in the shoulder and was dragging herself toward the back door. Her blood smeared a long streak of red across the floor. I saw one of the workers bolt toward the back of the kitchen, slammed right into the fryer, steam rising as her skin blistered on contact. "Stop, please! We all got people waiting at home," she cried out, her voice cracking with raw panic when she caught sight of the gun pointed her way. The noise around me faded into a low hum, and for a second, I swore I saw my wife and kid in the corner of the room, tears in their eyes, not saying a word. I lifted the gun, pulled the trigger, and flinched when I realized it was just an old ad poster hanging on the wall. Some middle-aged guy stood up from the corner, arms raised, hands trembling. I've worked here 7 years, long enough to know that no matter how bad today gets, tomorrow still shows up, he said, voice low and weirdly calm for a guy staring down death. Then came the sirens, first far off, then closer. My chest tightened, heart pounding, breath short, and all of a sudden, rage boiled up from somewhere deep and dark. My fingers clenched around the grip, slick with sweat, and I started firing at everything that moved. The blasts blurred with the screams. I couldn't even tell if the voice I heard was theirs or mine. Then there it was, that sharp, dry click. No more bullets. The gun slipped from my hand, hit the floor with a dead thud. I dropped with it, knees buckling, hitting the cold tiles. Everything came into sharp focus, shattered glass catching the light, blood staining white tiles, lifeless eyes staring back at me. And in that frozen second, I saw it, a bullet cutting through the air, this tiny black speck on a mission to end me. The crack in my skull when it hit should have hurt, but it didn't. It felt like release. I hit the ground, eyes wide open, staring up at the ceiling spinning overhead. Then the dark took everything.